Welcome. Today I'll be speaking with Gail Haynes, a psychotherapist. She is trained in Gestalt, uh, Rubenfeld synergy. Is that what it's called?
Mhm.
And internal family systems. Are
Yeah.
you retired now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I just wanted to share your experience because a lot of what you do is really very much in line with how I teach. So I think your experience of it can be informative for people who maybe have similar training. So when you came into the program, you were telling me about your skill in helping others, but you felt like you couldn't use those same skills for yourself. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I was like it was like I had a camera, like a lens, and it only went outward. And so I could see at a micro level and a macro level other people's. I could see their faces. I could see the color change in their face. I could see their pupils change. I could see little muscles twitch, and I could see families and how they moved around in systems and such. And I was really good at it, but I couldn't turn the camera, I couldn't turn the lens on me to see the things I couldn't see for myself. I knew it was there, I knew all about my shadow, um, and I learned to live with it, but I never could really finish it. I always felt like there was one more step I could do for myself. And I think it took retiring.
Mhm.
It took moving away from the community that I'd been in for 50 years,
Mm.
um, to the other side of the country where I didn't know anybody, just me and my husband, and beginning to pay attention just to me. And
Mm.
then I found your work, and it was like this. It's like the it's like having a puzzle with all the pieces around the edges all done. And then finding your work was like, these are the middle pieces that fit in here. So it's really been exciting.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it connects a lot of dots for people.
Yeah,
Many
yeah.
people who come into my online program are pretty experienced. They usually have training in multiple modalities. I really want to speak with you since you have such an extensive uh, career and exposure to therapies that I think really align with the perspective that I take with the body. And I asked you prior to the interview about why it was that you couldn't use these tools for yourself. So can you talk a little bit about that? So that
Um,
wasn't part of part of your training was not to use it for yourself, but to use it to expand.
my training was about what do you see, what do you hear, what do you feel, how can you use that to be useful to the other person.
Mm.
So that was my training. Now we did a lot of practicum in our training to do our own work, and I did a lot of my own work.
Mhm.
Um, but I always felt there was another level deeper that I couldn't find. It was like I just knew there was another piece I didn't have. In Gestalt, there's a cycle of experience, and you have an awareness of a need, and then you move towards fulfilling that awareness for that need, and then you go into satisfaction at the end, and then you go back and start around again.
Mhm.
And the work I'm doing with you, I've discovered it's that last piece of that cycle that I skipped. I
Mm.
skipped over the celebration.
Right.
I could feel competent, but I couldn't express or show that to other people.
Mm.
That was dangerous from the family I grew up in.
I see.
So I knew where my I'm going to cry just talking about it. I knew where my wounds were,
Mhm.
but I didn't know how to access them to heal them.
Mhm.
And I knew in my head, it's in your body,
Yeah.
which is why I studied with Alana for a couple years and did her training. But I never got there. I
What do you
never,
think now that you're working with the tools in my system, what do you think is different from what you've learned, let's say in that method that was missing, that that made it hard for you to get there?
well, I'm at a different stage in my life,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I'm not worried about taking care of anybody else right now.
Right. Right.
You know, I'm at a place where I don't have to do anything. I mean, I'm not responsible for anybody
Mm,
else. I have time and space just to pay attention to me, and I've moved from doing to being.
yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of a pattern for a lot of people who go into the helping professions.
Hmm.
They bypass their needs or their feeling, or to close that loop and fully feel their needs and feel the satisfaction of meeting their needs.
Yeah,
Open loop that just stays open while you care for everybody else.
and me, I think I jumped over it. Felt kind of a downside from it, kind of a missing. And I think that's the part of me that reached for sweets,
Mm.
reached for a cookie. Instead of a pat on the back, atta girl, you're really great, I had a cookie. It was a different kind of sweetness.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I trained in the tiny habits method developed by
Hmm.
your behavioral psychologist BJ Fogg at Stanford, and that is the key. His tiny habits method is, you build up new habits by making it small. First, you find a trigger that you already do. You add the very small little habit on top of it, so it piggybacks on it. But the key to make it work is that emotional connection to your own satisfaction of
Right.
having fulfilled your need. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that is the piece that's really hard for a lot of people, and particularly once it becomes part of your profession, it's like you don't pat yourself on the back for doing a good job, it's just the job that you do.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And
Can
I
you
grew up in a family that there was a lot of shaming, and there was a lot of my father's wounds were about um, he didn't have much self-respect or feel good about himself.
mm,
So if you any of us kids were what we called in our family full of ourselves, we
mhm,
got taken down,
mhm, mhm,
so that you learn I learned to cover that up, to not show that. It's
mhm,
not that I didn't always feel it, but I didn't put it out there and I didn't celebrate it. And I would just forget, I would break, I promised myself I was going to do this or that, and I would just never come through for myself.
yeah,
Not never, but often.
that's such a big theme that I hear a
Yeah,
lot, right? We don't show up for ourselves, and
right.
things that hold us back are sometimes, like you say, those family wounds, maybe they're not even yours, they're just modeled to you.
Yeah,
You don't even know what's yours. But sometimes there are other things too, and that's, part of the process in the program to kind of unpack what it might be. And, when you mentioned, I forgot what it was that you mentioned, but I said go straight to at home in your body.
yeah.
Because when there's compulsion around food, whether it's to nourish yourself or reward yourself or to avoid something, or even, like if you need to say something and you can't say it, to stuff it down, all of
Hmm.
those things uh, are helped when you can go deeper into your sensing posture in a way that allows you to be present and not to be shrink away with shame or disconnect or disassociate.
Yes, yes.
So as you're going through that, what's happening for you right now?
Right now, I'm doing a lot of just staying in the sensing posture, and I am making connections in my body. Like, I'm short, so sitting in a chair in a public place, I can't reach the ground with my feet.
Mm.
So, or a booth or something, so I'm learning about my heels on the floor a little more.
Mhm.
So, and that strength that gives me, the connection that gives me.
Mm.
Um, I'm a meditator. I've meditated for 50 some years. Um, and I did a meditation where you have this infinity swirl come up through you. So that fits right in with the things that you're talking about. Um, that feels like part of me. Another thing I'm sensing is that when I set an intention, I set it, I'm a visual person, so I set it visually. I like pick a place and send the energy or send the intention there. And then I can feel it build. I can feel it
Mm.
coming from, you were talking about the crystals that form around the string. And I can feel that happening. I can feel that it in my body, it feels like it gets easier
Nice.
each time like with the breathing, in the beginning of the breathing, I could only get down to my diaphragm. And so I would have an intention to get it down lower into my pelvic floor. And then it would happen like a little bit, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And then it just got easier and easier.
Mhm.
And then that opens up more energy in my body. And then that gives me more space to feel more.
Yes.
I think that's,
Yeah. And it can be emotional to
oh, yes. Oh, yes.
feel the depth of yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so common because to come home at that level is is a relief. There's a little grief that you were missing that, but typically that
There's so much joy. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're doing this in standing, right? The
Yes.
the sense of
Yes.
posture. What is the difference for you since you have a lot of meditation experience of doing it in standing versus seated?
I think seated brings it up into my body higher. I
Okay.
think standing brings it down through my whole body.
Okay. And so what's the difference with those two things? How does that impact you and your process?
Going down through my whole body to my feet
Mhm.
makes it more personal.
Oh.
It's very personal.
Mm.
My kind of regular Buddhist meditation is not terribly personal.
Mm.
It's beyond personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this is very personal. This has a purpose, and the purpose is for me with myself,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. To show up for yourself. Yeah.
to show up for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is typically the wounds that we need to heal, the wound that is related
Right.
to our personal story versus the more kind of global, what happens on a more kind of global level. It's easy,
Right.
I think, sometimes to depersonalize your experience and kind of be really distant from your direct experience when you go into the sort of meditation where you're not present with your own material that it's almost like an escape hatch. Oh, I'm going to go to a higher level, and that doesn't even matter anymore, but it still matters because uh, it's part of the fabric. It's part of the fabric of your body.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're, I think my meditations are changing. It's really strange because they're becoming more, I go to a place where there's nothing. It's a oneness.
Mhm.
It's a place where there's everything and nothing all at the same time.
Mhm.
And it's not personal at all,
Mhm.
but it's almost blissful. And I have a couple of people that I work with, hands-on body work with now, and they're like neighbors and friends that we're just doing exchanges and things. And I find that with a couple of them, we both go someplace
Mm.
and they feel better and I feel better. And it's just different.
Yeah.
It feels deeper. So the deeper I go into my body, the deeper I go out.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It's almost like when you can expand yourself, the presence
Yes,
of yourself, then
yes,
the things can dissolve that were binding before.
right.
You get to a new level of experience because the layers have gone out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
I have this experience of I started out as a quilter.
Hmm.
I had a friend she was a quilter and she was dying and she needed someone to be with her. So I was spending time, she taught me how to quilt anyway. And then I started doing art quilting. And I was really pretty good at it. I really liked it. And I won a New York Empire art quilt best of show
Wow,
with one
impressive.
of my quilts. I was very impressed with myself. But I moved out here and joined a fabric artist group. And I went to the group and said, I'm a quilter, I'm not an artist. I don't want to compete with anybody. I'm not an artist. And I showed them one of my pieces that I had made. And they all sounded and looked very impressed. But I kept saying, but I'm not an artist. And then afterwards, people kind of stayed away from me. And I thought, what did I do wrong? You know? And then I realized doing my sensing, my posture sensing, that I was giving two different messages. I was showing something very artful and at the same time not claiming it,
Mhm.
which was a weird thing for them probably to see and hear, you know? And I thought that's true, they didn't match up. Just like when what you feel and what you experience in your body don't match, or your mind and your body don't match up. It's a mismatch,
Yeah.
and you can't trust it.
Yes,
It's
there.
that trusting it. I don't think they could trust me,
Oh, yes, that's
you know?
very good. Yeah, yeah, because when there's a mismatch, something is not working.
Right? It's just,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah. And so when you can expand yourself, you can own everything that's there.
right,
And when I don't want to be competitive. It's like, they're probably thinking like, well, we're not. Why would we be competitive as artists? Why is an artist competitive? Why do those things go
right,
together in mind? Because really the whole kind of points of being present, being in your body, going down to this really deep level and being able to process your stuff is to have clarity. And why
right.
the point is that you have this creative force, and now you can let that come out. You
right,
can come out and be expressive in the way you intend, and it's not encumbered by belief systems, old stories about yourself, who you are and who you're not,
right.
what you could be proud of, what you should be ashamed of. Because
I
you, by
think,
saying that I'm not an artist, you set yourself to the side.
right. And I think that if I were, as a child, if I were to say an artist, I would have been mocked.
Mhm.
So that's the fear coming, running the show rather than me, me being able to own what I am.
Yeah, yeah. And I would say it's not even the fear might be the emotion attached to actually showing up for yourself, but
Right,
the bigger thing that kind of keeps it trapped is that identity of who you are. Who do you think you are?
right,
Who do you think you are? Yeah, and you can think who you are. You can be who you are when you
right,
start to expand yourself, not correct something or try to shut down the fear to let that feeling of fear have a different quality to it. It's not a quality that keeps, bumping up against this thing. And so you let this thing win, this identity, but it's just an energy. And if you can expand all the identities that you are, you're not just a therapist, you're not just an artist, you're not just
right.
Gail, right? You're
Yeah,
you're you're your wife, your mother, your teacher,
yeah,
your neighbor, your quilter.
yeah,
And the more identities that you feel yourself to be, the more flexible you are in how you show up. Because being kind of tied to one identity is really a fragile thing. If that's
right.
all you have, you're going to cling to it and you're going to defend it, and you're also going to deny everything else.
I think that's why I needed to move.
Mm, right.
I,
Yeah.
I woke up one morning and said, we need to move to the West Coast.
Oh, is that how you
You
ended up?
know, yeah, we're in Washington State.
Uh-huh.
And we met and came from Seattle. So we were in some ways coming back to where we
Oh,
started. But it was a very clear, everything was fine in our lives there. We had built this beautiful home and I designed it. I really was really proud of that home, but it was like, this is not, there's another level, there's another chapter.
oh, that's wonderful.
And it was to do this work. But I had to let go of all the investment I had in feeling proud of what I had done,
Mm,
because there was a piece of was what I hadn't done that I was still struggling with.
mm. So being so proud of what you had done kind of highlighted what you hadn't done.
Right.
Mm. So being rigid with that didn't
Yeah.
allow you to shift and expand to possibly fail with what you haven't done.
Right.
Yeah.
And my body was getting older
Mhm.
and I was getting, stiffer and losing mobility and stuff. And I figured this is the only body I'm going to have for a while. I want to be in it.